Hello and welcome to the Session Stream channel. The action movie we have today tells the thrilling tale of a sniper soldier's fight for survival. While evading terrorists, he accidentally steps on a landmine in the middle of an unforgiving desert, enduring 52 agonizing hours during which he battles against all odds, holding on to hope that rescue will finally arrive. This exciting film is titled Minefield and was released in 2017. The story begins with Mike, a sniper, bidding farewell to a young woman at the airport before boarding a helicopter for his next mission. Subsequently, we find Mike and his spotter, Tommy, positioned atop a cliff, overlooking the vast desert as they await the arrival of their target. Tommy, by nature, is a real chatterbox, while Mike maintains a more serious disposition. As they watch attentively, they notice a group of people on foot on one side and a convoy of armed vehicles approaching from the other. Mike has a 65-year-old man in his sights, suspected of being a terrorist, and receives instructions over the radio to ensure the mission's success. However, as they observe the situation, they realize that the gathered group is celebrating a wedding, and the target in question could be the groom's father. The mission becomes even more complex when the groom and bride block the target, making it impossible to hit him without causing collateral damage. Mike faces a moral dilemma, reluctant to take the life of an innocent person. He decides to lie to his command center, claiming that he lost the target. Shortly after, the duo is discovered by the armed men responsible for the security of the ceremony. A brief firefight erupts, forcing the target to flee immediately. Mike and Tommy are compelled to retreat, damaging their GPS in the process, and take refuge behind a rock formation. The armed men approach, heading in the direction where they are hiding. In this critical moment, Mike ingeniously creates a distraction to divert the pursuers' attention, allowing the duo to escape to the other side. After managing to escape temporarily, Mike and Tommy request an evacuation but receive the news that they will need to face a new challenge, crossing the desert to reach a village that is 5 hours away, where they will be rescued. They proceed on foot, enduring sandstorms and scorching heat. Tommy, with his chatty nature, either entertains or annoys Mike with stories about his son back home. Seeing Mike silent and seemingly worried, Tommy presses him to open up. Mike reveals that he is having difficulty proposing to his girlfriend, Jenny. Tommy teases him about being in this situation and is somewhat alarmed by it, but he also gives him advice, saying that initially, marriages can be tough, but with time, you'll get the hang of it. As they continue their walk in the desert, an alert sign arises when a rusty sign flies and lands right in front of them, making it clear they are in a dangerous area. Mike takes this signal very seriously, remembering that 33 million landmines have been buried in the desert over the past 40 years. Tommy tries to reassure his fears, claiming that it's just a trick by the Berber people to keep enemies away. However, Mike remains cautious and concerned about the risks represented by the warning sign. Unconcerned, Tommy continues to walk a few meters ahead of Mike, criticizing him for being overly cautious. Suddenly, a click is heard, followed by an explosion. Tommy had stepped on a landmine and was temporarily deafened. Mike takes a step towards Tommy and hears another click, indicating that he had also stepped on a landmine. He freezes in shock, and the sand from the explosion begins to settle. Tommy survived the blast, but his legs below the knees were severely injured. Mike, unable to move, struggles to calm him down. When nothing seems to work, Mike mentions Tommy's son, which motivates Tommy to fight through the pain. Finally, Mike manages to find a morphine injection in the front pocket of one of his Marine uniforms and applies it to Tommy's leg to alleviate his intense pain. Observing his partner's intense suffering, Mike offers to help remove Tommy's foot from the landmine and even speculates whether the mine Tommy stepped on might be deactivated due to its age. However, Tommy vehemently warns him not to proceed. In this moment of despair and anguish, Tommy draws his weapon and points it at his own head. He declares his love for Mike and his determination to survive, regardless of the circumstances, and then pulls the trigger. Mike's desperate cry echoes in the desert solitude, now trapped alone, unable to move. Soon, he grows tired of standing and kneels, realizing he somehow needs to reach the radio that is lying next to Tommy's body, a few meters away. He has an idea: to tie his shoelace to an axe and use this makeshift extension to pull the radio bag towards him. However, upon reaching it, he discovers that the radio's battery is completely drained, and the spare battery is inside Tommy's body. Mike is shaken by this revelation, but his determination persists. He devises another improvised plan to charge the radio's battery using solar power. After his efforts, he finally manages to contact his superiors and request an immediate evacuation. However, he is informed that rescue helicopters cannot fly to his location due to frequent sandstorms. The only hope is to wait for a rescue convoy, which will take approximately 52 hours to arrive. Frustrated with the response, Mike receives the major's suggestion to dig a trench and get rid of the mine, sacrificing only a non-vital limb in the process to avoid life-threatening risks. However, Mike decides to resist and wait for the rescue, setting a countdown on his watch. A massive sandstorm forms on the horizon and hits Mike with full force. Determined, he endures the storm without moving his foot from the mine. When the storm finally subsides, he notices it brought Tommy's body with it, and along with it, the spare radio battery, which is now within his reach. However, the radio itself is still out of his reach. As the hours pass, Mike runs out of water, and his desperation grows, sometimes even considering the idea of ending his own life. At this critical moment, Mike notices a Berber man approaching, moving in a zigzag pattern, apparently trying to alert him about landmines. However, the Berber man appears to restrict his actions and even taunt Mike. Mike tries to explain his situation to the Berber man, but he continues to insist that he must take the next step. The Berber man takes Mike's water canteen and walks away, leaving him dehydrated and desperate. Mike begins to drink his own urine as a last resort. Then, a young Berber girl approaches, returning Mike's water canteen, which is now full. The girl doesn't utter a single word, but her gesture brings relief to Mike. However, when he asks her to fetch the radio, the girl doesn't comprehend. Mike's desperation grows, and he raises his voice, frightening the girl, who quickly flees. As night falls, and the temperature drops dramatically, Mike lights a fire to keep warm. Over time, he begins to hear noises of approaching wild animals. Seeking distraction, he looks at photos of his girlfriend on his phone, finding a video where Jane expresses her love for him and urges him to return safely. These words deeply move him as he fears he might never see her again. Exhausted from everything that's happening, he starts to doze off, but suddenly, the fire goes out, and he finds himself surrounded by wild animals. Mike tries to fend them off with his weapon but fails. One of the animals advances towards him, but using a flashlight, he manages to shoot one of them, causing an explosion when it steps on a landmine. Morning arrives, and the same Berber man reappears. He comments that Mike is very lucky to have survived this far, even after stepping on a landmine and spending the night in the desert with wild animals. He once again encourages Mike to take a step forward, but Mike is skeptical and believes that the Berber might know the location of the landmines since he always walks in a pattern. However, the Berber denies knowing where the landmines are and explains that he walks in a straight line only because it's safer. Mike insists once more that the man fetch his radio, and this time, the Berber agrees, handing it over to Mike before leaving. Mike checks his watch and realizes that there are still 24 hours left until help arrives. Slowly, he begins to experience hallucinations, seeing Tommy coming back from the dead. The imaginary Tommy motivates Mike, assuring him that he will make it out of this situation alive. As the sun sets, Mike starts reflecting on all the mistakes he's made in his life, especially leaving his girlfriend Jane alone and going on this mission. Once again, he finds himself surrounded by wild animals, which, even with landmines exploding around them, do not back away. Mike starts shooting randomly in the dark, but the animals continue to attack him. He gets lost in his thoughts while battling the wild animals. When the sun rises, Mike snaps back to reality and realizes that the wild animals that attacked him are dead all around him. Despite being alone and immobile, he managed to kill all the animals. Mike is in the desert, with his foot on the mine, without moving for 45 hours. At this moment, he receives a communication from his captain, informing him that the rescue team is running late. The captain asks if Mike can endure another 17 hours due to problems the rescue convoy encountered on the way. Mike replies that he couldn't withstand this additional time. The major then informs him that there's someone who wants to speak to him. Mike hears Jane's voice and quickly begins to apologize for leaving her, for messing everything up, and for destroying everything in his life. He starts to have hallucinations and sees Jane sitting on a couch in the middle of the desert. He tries to reach her, but his strength begins to fade. Mike starts to surrender to death when suddenly, the Berber appears out of nowhere and holds him, seemingly arriving in time to save him. The story continues to explore Mike's emotional and physical journey in a captivating and twist-filled manner. The Berber man's account of his own tragedy and how he managed to find joy in life again, despite losing his leg and his daughter, is touching and inspiring. Mike's hallucinations, including painful flashbacks from his past, add layers of depth to the character and show how he confronted his own demons during this experience. The twist with the mine explosion during the intense shootout heightens the tension in the story, and Mike's final decision to step forward, trusting the words of the Berber man, is an emotionally powerful moment. He made the courageous choice to move forward, believing that, in case of trouble, the convoy would rescue him and take care of his injuries. When he finally lifted his foot from the area, relief washed over him as there was no explosion. It was at this moment that he discovered that the area he had stepped on was actually a can, possibly left there by the Berber's daughter when she was alive. All the time the Berber resident encouraged him to move forward with his life and return to his girlfriend was, in fact, quite literal. Mike felt a mix of relief for being alive despite the non-lethal wounds from the gunfire during the confrontation and regret for not realizing sooner what he needed to do. Regardless of the reason for this whirlwind of emotions, one thing was certain: this incident would completely change Mike's life. He learned a valuable lesson in that moment. With a heart full of emotion, Mike fired the flare and collapsed to the ground. The rescue team found him and took him away from that place where he had suffered so much. Upon returning to the airport, Jane was waiting for him, tears of happiness in her eyes even before she embraced him. He knelt down, as he had done at different moments in his life, and proposed to her, promising never to leave her alone again. Now, they can move forward, one step at a time. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed, please show your support with a like and subscribe to the channel.